Good morning. It's Sunday morning, and we're quarantined by order of our governor. And so, what better day to miss Sunday than a cold, rainy spring day? And I'd like to record a sermon for you, only 20 minutes. Why only 20 minutes? Well, because if nobody listens to this, I'm better off spending 20 minutes than 45. Add to 20 minutes, I can give you the message of Ecclesiastes, which is something that I think is a perfect message for today. So, if you'll give me your attention for a little while, we'll look at Solomon's message. Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes, and if you get your Bibles and follow along, you might be able to actually see what I'm talking about in this book. Solomon was uniquely qualified to write this book. Nobody could have done a better job at coming to the conclusion that he did than him. He was the richest and the wisest person that's ever lived, and he made sense out of life. Right now, we're all trying to figure out the meaning of life, so to speak. Job says in Elihu, when he's giving his conclusion, that God saves us from death 3 times, so that we'll really learn the message and the value of life, that we really learn how it is to live. So, we used to say, oh, I don't want to go to church, and now, oh, I can't wait to go to church. So there you have it. If you leave God out of the equation, life is meaningless. It's absolutely a waste of time. And in the first 5 chapters, what he does is go through issue after issue, event after event. He says what's lacking can't be numbered. Everything you have is folly, that folly excels wisdom on every street corner, that there is absolutely no meaning to life, even though things have their own time. Chapter 3, there's just no significance to life if you leave God out. And so he has these conclusions interspersed through the book, that the very best a person can do is fear God and enjoy life. That's the whole duty, the whole responsibility that God has given to you, is to enjoy life and to fear Him. And so he starts that first conclusion in chapter 3, verse 12. I know that there is nothing better for them than to rejoice and to do good in their lives, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. So God is introduced as giving to us life, and we ought to enjoy it. It's given to us to enjoy. We have a similar conclusion, the last verse of chapter 3. So I perceived that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his own works, and that is his heritage, for who can bring him to see what will happen after him. So he argues all through this book that there isn't any significance to life unless if you bring God into it. And the conclusion of the book is actually in the last chapter, in the last verses. The whole conclusion, the preacher says in chapter 12, verse 9, fear God and keep His commandments. This is the whole duty of man, and that's his argument. Enjoy life and fear God. That's the most you can give. Everything else will end up insignificant and unimportant. I remember when I first preached this book here as a young pastor in 1982 and 83, and in those days our city was known for the rich and the famous and upcoming, and everybody thought everything was so important and wealth was so important. And by the time I finished this series, it had hit enough world views that what I found is that people did not want to hear what this message is saying. So his argument is enjoy life and fear God. You can't improve on that. So if you can come to church, great, come to church. If you can't, stay home, enjoy life, and fear God. That's the whole duty. That's what the wisest man that's ever lived, who wrote large portions of Scripture, tells us is the conclusion. But the interesting part about this book of Ecclesiastes is he says enjoy life, right? But he doesn't tell us how to enjoy life until you get to chapter 5. And he has a number of specific imperatives in Hebrew, they're commands, telling you what to do. So it's one thing, so well, go have a nice time. It's another thing to say to somebody, well, here's how you have a nice time. So we're going to look at these imperatives that don't start until chapter 5. So the first 4 chapters, he tells you all about the failures that he went through, and everything was a waste of time and vanity of vanities. And then he starts by giving us imperatives of what you have to do to really enjoy life. There used to be an old beer commercial, grab all the gusto you can get. Well, how do you do that? Well, Solomon's going to tell you. The first thing is real interesting. In chapter 5, he starts with worship, and take worship seriously. You want to enjoy life, take worship seriously. Obviously you do. You wouldn't be listening. You wouldn't be listening to a podcast sermon on a Sunday morning when you could be sleeping in bed. But he starts in chapter 5, verse 1 with his first imperative: walk prudently when you go to the house of God, and draw near to hear rather than to give the sacrifice of fools. Go there to figure out what God wants to give to you. Don't be an idiot. Don't be rash with your mouth. Don't let your heart utter anything hastily before God. Verse 4, when you make a vow to God, don't delay to pay it. And so he comes down to verse 7, fear God. So his first command, if you really want to enjoy life, then you need to fear God. His next command has to do, there's also parables or proverbs, mashal, the Hebrew word for teaching by transfer, all through here. And these proverbs are tidbits about living, and we're not going to cover that in 20 minutes, obviously. But the main commandments are, the second one is in chapter 7, and, it's be optimistic. You can see that in chapter 7, verses 9 and 10. Do not hasten in your spirit to be angry. Some people, they're just determined to be upset and angry. Solomon says, put a lid in it. What are you getting so angry about? It's crazy, huh? Don't be in a hurry in your spirit to be angry, for anger rests in the bosoms of fools. Do not say, why were the former days better than these? For you do not inquire wisely concerning this. So his second command here, and I won't keep track of the numbers, the next command is that you really need to be positive and not grumpy. So don't sit in your house and complain about all the people that have hoarded toilet paper. Don't do that. Just enjoy life. Don't say, I remember when we could get all the toilet paper we wanted. One of my aunts who lives in Canada sent me a Facebook cartoon, and it starts out on a cold September day in 2053. Billy unwrapped the last roll of toilet paper that had been stockpiled by his parents in 2020. So humor is where you find it. Life is where what you make out of it. And sitting here today and saying, I wish I were, or if I'd have known then, I wouldn't have, says you're not going to enjoy life if that's your worldview. The next thing he says is to be submissive. Verse 14 of the same chapter, in the day of prosperity be joyful, but in the day of adversity consider, surely God has appointed the one as well as the other, so that man can find nothing that will happen after him. God has our days, our times in his hands, and he alone is the one who rules and knows exactly what we need and when we need it. So this is a day of adversity. Be submissive. God put one as well as the other, so we learn to be submissive. I hear people say, we're just going to defy our governor and we're going to meet regardless of what he says. That's not a good way to look at life. Being submissive to authorities is what God has told us to be. And he also said when he made the announcement, he says, I have authority to detain you. So if I'm going to be quarantined, I don't wish it to be in jail. The next thing he says here in chapter 7 is be humble. Don't be overly wise or overly righteous. This is verse 16. Don't be overly righteous. Don't be overly wise. Why should you destroy yourself? There is not a just man on earth who does good and does not sin. Also, don't take to heart everything people say, lest you hear your servant cursing you. For many times also your own heart has known that even you have cursed others. So, for some people it's open season to swear at the pastor and curse the principal. Open season year round. I shouldn't take that to heart. Uh, Recently, one of our expelled students put some very interesting pictures of me on the internet, and being a good principal, since he threatened that I should die, I forwarded on to our SEVIS representative who sent it to Homeland Security. So I don't think he'll be coming back to the United States. But, how many times have I said things about people and said things that people think are racist or whatever? Well, we do our best not to, but don't take it to heart when someone says this to you or that. Be humble. The next command, if you're going to enjoy life, chapter 8, be obedient. Keep the king's commandment for the sake of your oath to God. Do not be hasty to go from his service, from his presence. Do not take your stand for an evil thing, for he does whatever he pleases him. Now, we don't have kings, we have presidents. We followed the responsibilities that we had as a school, and we closed when it was appropriate, and we're going to stay closed. We're going to do what our leadership says. Well, what if we disagree with them? Well, if I'm going to enjoy life, be obedient. Well, what if you get conflict in statements? Well, that really doesn't happen very often. And this is certainly not a situation where Christians are being singled out in any way, shape, or form because of our faith. The next one here in chapter 9, you want to enjoy life, well, get along with your spouse. Chapter 9, verse 9, live joyfully with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life, which he has given you under the sun, all the days of vanity. The reality is, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. If you're going to really get a lot out of life, then you need to enjoy your domestic relations. How do you do that? Well, I'd suggest you start by being nice. Live joyfully. So if somebody put a joyful thermometer in you, we're taking temperatures with infrared thermometers these days. If somebody put a joyful thermometer in you, would it come back and saying, man, I am so glad that I'm married to you. I am so happy. That's where you start. Live joyfully. And you won't enjoy life if your domestic relationships are miserable. So Solomon calls that out. Someone would say to me, well, changing to the next one, the next command, if I were going to be really happy, I'd be as lazy as the day is long. I wouldn't do anything. Well, I'll tell you what, people who work are far happier than people who aren't. Chapter 9, verse 10, whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might. With all your might. Work hard. A friend of mine once said to me, oh, Marv, that hard work will kill you. I looked at him and just laughed. If hard work would kill somebody, I'd have been dead a long time ago. Enjoy it. Work hard. Well, I'm retired. Well, the only thing that needs to be retired is your car. Take it to Costco. Get new tires on it. But you need to keep working. Find something to do and work hard at it. You're not dead yet, so go to work. See, I can say this on camera. I might not say it to your face. The next one, he says, respect authority. This is in chapter 10. Do not curse the king. There's your imperative. Even in your thought, don't curse the rich, and even your bedroom, for a bird of the air may carry your voice, and a bird in flight may tell the matter. So if you don't respect authority, it will come out. It's real easy to figure out who's angry in the school, and it's real easy to find out who respects authority and who doesn't. And the next command here is in chapter 11. Be generous. This is chapter 11. Happy people who enjoy life give stuff to others. They give stuff away. They don't hang on to it. Cast your bread upon the waters, and you will find it after many days. Give a serving to 7, also to 8, for you don't know what evil will be on the earth. As you don't know what the way the wind is going to blow, or how the bones grow in the womb of her who is with child, so you do not know the works of God who makes all things. In the morning sow your seed, in the evening do not withhold your hand, for you don't know which will prosper, either this or that, or whether both alike will be good, or whether neither one is going to be good. His point is, be generous. Don't be stingy. Give open-hearted. This is that grace giving. I'm not talking about sending money to the church here. I'm talking about the opportunity. You can send your money to the church. I'm talking about the opportunity to do good to others, to be generous to others. You know, if God brings you the thought, do it. If it's on your heart, don't tell your spirit, oh no, I need to keep this. This is useful to me. Give it away. See what the Lord wants to do with it. And the last one here is in chapter 11 and verse 12, and it has to do with surviving youth. Just survive the young days, written to the young man. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes. And I thought when I was a teenager and I read that, wow, man, I'm going to go party hardy. Yeah, unfortunately, I read the rest of the verse. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. Oh, rats. Guy's going to, oh, well, it kind of took a U-turn on what I was thinking. Therefore, remove sorrow from your heart and put evil away from your flesh, for childhood and youth are vanity. So the solution here is the command. Remember now your Creator in the days of your youth. So, Solomon wrote a book, and he told us, if you leave God out of it, your life is worthless. Your life is vanity of vanities. You ought to enjoy life and fear God. And then he said, well, guess what? I know how to do that. And he gave us these commands to enjoy life. So hopefully as you're listening to the rain and quarantined in your bungalow, you will stop and remember the Creator. How many years have you walked with Him? Remember Him as a young person all the way through life. And these commands that He's given to you will help you truly enjoy life. May the Lord bless you and make the time quick before we get to come back together in fellowship and maybe have some coffee and donuts. My love to you all. Bye-bye.